Hey guys, welcome back to
Real
Real
love
Love Scenario.
scenario. Hello there.
Welcome back to our Real Love Scenario. Shout out to our real lovers. We are back. It's a happy place. I'm happy to be recording today. I'm excited to talk relationships and new relationship things. Should be an amazing time.
I think so.
And it's that holiday season. I saw a little dust of snow not too long ago.
Oh, there was a little dust of
There
snow.
was a little dust of snow. It's some people who live. I don't know if we got any. I know we got people that live in the South. We got people in
Yes.
Texas. We got people in Atlanta,
Yeah.
and everywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line, right? But Christmas without like cold weather and snow just seems so odd to me.
Yeah.
And I know
would
there's some
like
people
that,
who
though.
grew up like that. Yeah, yeah. As an adult, it's like that's cool. But actually, you know what? I just noticed that Christmas movies are very seasonist.
Absolutely.
It's
Like
seasonism.
that is not Christmas in Cali.
Or classism. It's seasonism.
Yes, it's seasonism.
And every movie
Yeah.
is snowing. It's a snowman.
Yep. It's very
Santa
specific
came from
to
the North
certain
Pole.
Yep. Very specific to certain
Dang.
parts of the world.
Christmas is a
Like
very,
that is not Christmas in Florida.
That's crazy. It's a seasonal holiday. A season
It
is
is.
holiday.
Yes.
They do not acknowledge the South when it comes to Christmas
They don't
and popular
acknowledge
culture.
any warm regions, not even just the South. They don't acknowledge Christmas in like the Bahamas. It's not like that in Jamaica on Christmas Day. It's no snow there.
Nope.
Yeah, so it's very specific. And I'm okay with it not being. I think, like we talked about on the last episode, like I'm like, Christmas, schmishmas. I think once I have a baby, I might feel more like,
Walking around
yeah, but
Christmas tree.
right
and-
now, I just kind of want to get through it. I want to just get past it. I did,
Yes.
though, have a really fun time with my family, my aunt, my niece, and my grandmother. We got matching pajamas and we
Aw.
had we watched a Christmas movie,
What movie?
the new one with Eddie Murphy and Tracy Ellis Ross.
Got you.
I don't know the name of it.
Top 3 Christmas movies for you, Rhonda.
Ooh,
And list them in the comments. What's your top 3 Christmas
Home
movies?
Alone for sure.
Home Alone's a
It's my
classic.
favorite
Home
forever.
Alone's a classic.
This Christmas with
That's
Chris Brown.
Okay.
And
That was a good movie. It
yeah.
was deep too.
It was really good. And then Best Man Holiday.
Ooh.
Best Man Holiday.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. What about yours?
Man, so many good ones. Home Alone's a classic.
Yes.
Keep the change, you filthy animal. Gotta go with that. That's a classic. Macaulay. I think he got a Hollywood star on a Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it got to be just for that movie.
For sure. For sure. And is
Just
it like 3 Home Alones?
Yeah,
I
it's like
only
3.
really like the original one. The
original
second
one
one
was
I
good.
like too.
The second one was cool,
But
and it just got to figure out why they keep leaving this kid. But that's a different story. But I like it. This is not as much of a classic, but now it's becoming one. But Elf with Will Ferrell gets me. Like I think that's a funny one.
I don't think I've seen that.
You don't see Elf?
No. And I love Will Ferrell, so I know it's funny as hell.
You know the premise?
No?
Is that basically he grew up on the North Pole, but he was a regular guy. So
Okay.
he was a lot taller than all the other elves.
Oh.
And I forgot how he
Got
got up
it.
there. Either his dad had a relationship with somebody or elf or something. I don't know. But whatever is that he's up there and obviously he doesn't fit. He's not good at making toys. So then he comes down to the real world to like find his dad. And essentially, you know, he's been living in the North Pole all his life. So his viewpoint on Christmas, he
Yeah.
knows Santa Claus is real and all this stuff. It's just very funny. And I'm sorry if I butchered that plot because somebody in the comments was like, I was screaming at Dre, messing up the sister
At
plot.
both of us.
At both of us
yeah,
messing
they were
up
screaming at, but like, how don't they know?
the sister plot.
I
I'm sorry.
forgot. Y'all, that was a long time ago.
But Elf is a good Christmas movie. And I would say number 3. And that's newer too. Best Man Holiday is a really good Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's comedic. It's obviously a continuation of Best Man. It has a lot of sadness in it. It deals with death and grief. But it's about friendship and love. It's a really, really good movie.
Actually, you know what I really like too is The Family Man with Nicolas Cage. Have you seen
Never
that?
saw that.
That's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
am so movie deprived. It's crazy. Like it's so many movies have come out over the years, and I'm like, never saw it.
Well, you need to watch The Family Man. If you haven't watched it, watch it. And you will like it because you like relationships.
Yeah.
Don Cheadle's in it, Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
And essentially the plot is that this man Nicolas Cage. It's the age old Christmas thing, Ghost of Christmas Present, Ghost of Christmas Past, all that
Okay.
stuff like that. But essentially, the plot of the movie is that Nicolas Cage is like a big hedge fund manager and stuff like that, and he has all
Okay.
his employees in the office on Christmas, and it's being this
Oh,
really harsh, mean guy. Like, I don't care about your families, we're working. So
okay.
essentially, it goes back to he had an inflection point in his life to where he was with the woman he was with in college,
Mm-hmm.
and he could either go to this internship in, I think, Europe or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or stay with her. And basically, he chose to go to the internship over her, and
Mm.
that was his life. But then with Don Cheadle, the Ghost of Christmas Past, whatever,
Okay.
he woke up and then he was actually in the life that he had with the woman
With
as if
her.
he would have stayed. But he
Oh,
still has his memory of his current life,
got it.
but she's seeing him as if he had stayed. So it's just interesting. He's like adjusting, not knowing what's going on, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's called The Family Man because now he has a family. He has this, and obviously you can kind of tell where the movie's going to go by the
Yeah.
end of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a really good movie,
Okay,
and
I'm
it's
gonna
like
check it
around
out.
Christmas
And
time.
it's like 20, it's over 20 years
Oh
old.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a very old
It's
movie. Okay.
classic,
Yeah, I'll
classic.
check it out.
But yeah, let us know your favorite Christmas movies because it's that season.
Yes, yes, please. My mother, we don't even have enough time. My mother loves all Christmas movies.
Oh wow,
Literally, she watches every single one,
Charlie Brown.
every single one.
Wow,
My mother watches Christmas movies every single day from October to until they stop. She watches them on
wow.
all channels. This is her favorite holiday.
Oh, that's
Yes,
good. Good for
yes,
her. Good for her.
yes,
Love
yes.
that. Love that. Well, speaking of telling our real lovers to do something, and I guess that covered my random question of the day too.
Hmm.
I want to shout out one of our real lovers.
Okay.
And it's going to be a little bit different. This isn't a review. This is an Instagram story that someone shared. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. It was from Brittany Joy. BB Mixon is the IG name. And she
Okay.
tagged us both in it.
Hey,
She gave a little
BB.
quote that I said on the last episode was, it's not really that you want it. It's really, it would be nice to have. At
Mhm.
what cost? You can't say that I want to be disciplined and work out in the morning, but stay up on the game till 2 a.m. And she
Yes.
said, I always love listening to Relationship Restore every week to recalibrate in a dialogue between Rhonda and Dre. This week is Chef Kiss.
Oh, thank you, BB. I did see that. Appreciate it. She definitely shows love to us. So appreciate it. And just to piggyback on that super quick, to the people that messaged me and left comments on the YouTube sending me love about my dad, I appreciate y'all very much.
Yeah,
Very much.
that a lot of people connected with that.
Yes, yeah,
And I
yeah.
always thought that was interesting too, is that when we used to do the clubhouse with Mona, I remember that one day, I think I told you when we did it, when I know Jason Bowman was on there and all of us were talking about these experiences with our fathers. And I was like, it's crazy how many shared experiences that we have,
That's it.
especially as Black people in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, sometimes it's a shared experience over absent fathers and
Yes.
fathers that haven't been around and
Yep.
fathers that and parents being separated and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. So it's always interesting to hear that and glad that you sharing that, shed some light on a situation
Yeah,
and
for
somebody
sure.
could see their self in you.
That's why there's power in telling your story.
For sure.
There is power in telling your story. So thank you and thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Awesome. So we're gonna get into our real life love scenario. But before we do that, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you leave a review.
Mm-hmm.
That's our holiday wish. I feel like we've been good. We don't deserve cold.
That's
We
right.
want presents.
We've been very good.
Yeah,
We should be on the top of Santa's good list.
for sure.
Yes, please.
But please write a review, 5-star, please. And then follow the podcast, hit that plus button up at the top right to subscribe to the show so you can get updated anytime new episodes drop. Okay, so our real life love scenario has been hitting the blogs, the news, everywhere.
Everywhere.
And the question I want to pose is, what is really considered cheating? So Partisan Fontaine is opening up about his relationship with Meg the Stallion. And he said he did not get head in the bed like she said. But he did send some text messages to another woman. So is that cheating? And if so, is that easier to forgive than the actual physical act of cheating? So Rhonda, we've seen the interviews. You watched some, I watched some. I know on list service, he was asked and he was like, well, what is cheating? Explain it to me.
Yeah.
So first, Rhonda, what is really considered cheating? And then give a little commentary to the party and Meg situation. And what do you think about that?
Well, first, what is cheating? For me, cheating is doing anything with a person, of the opposite sex that is sexual, flirty, lusty, loving in nature. So anything that extends beyond like friendship or friendliness.
Yes.
If you are complimenting their body, if you think of them in a lustful way, if you're trying to create a love connection with them that is similar to the one that you may have and or used to have, because sometimes people cheat when they fall out of love, so they're trying to get that love outside of the relationship. But if you're doing anything like that with someone else, to me that is cheating, and that could be in multiple forms. You could be doing it on social media, you could be doing it over text message, you could be doing it in person, you could be having sex with the person. All of that is cheating for me. And as Gigi put it, from lip service, anything that you would feel that you have to hide from me, if you're not comfortable doing it in front of me, to me, then it's cheating. It's cheating. So I'm very matter of fact on that. I don't have these little concepts and, well, this is cheat. That's not really cheating. You got to actually have sex to cheat. No. You can cheat without even touching a person. You totally cheat. So my thoughts on the party Megan thing is, the shortest answer is, I think it's just very dramatic, and I feel like we should be taken out of the group chat. It also very much made me appreciate how the Jay-Z and Beyoncés of the world handle their relationship affairs. But I also really just had to think that Megan is 27, 28, something like that. I think Party is in his early 30s, and they would have been dating when she was even younger. And I have to understand that as a 40-year-old, I remember a world without the internet. And so I have an appreciation for privacy to some degree, where I looked up, like, Facebook came out in 2004 or something like that. Based on Megan's age, she would have been like 7 or 8 years old. So the world that she's known for the most part is a social media, tell all your business, share everything. If it's not real, if it's not being showcased type of world. So I think how they interact with each other is just common, because it's not just them, it's lots of people. A lot of people do what they do. They have their whole fallout all over the internet for all of us to see. Shout out to Cardi B and Offset. Lord Jesus, they going through it too. Another episode.
Yes.
But yes, I have a fond appreciation for privacy. I think obviously talking about the fact that you're not together anymore, just making sure that we are clear about that, I think that's cool. But we don't need to know all the intricacies of exactly what happened, especially if y'all aren't able to be on the same page about it. Like, Will and Jada can talk about what has happened in their relationship because they seem to be, at this point, on the same page about it.
Yep.
Y'all not on the same page about it. So it just feels like, can you call her? Can you text him and y'all figure it out between the two of you and just take us out of the chat?
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents on it. I just want them both to be quiet.
Got you.
At this point.
That's understandable.
Yeah,
we get that.
Yeah,
and I think there are a lot of people who share the same sentiment as you.
Shut up. Shut up. Just shut up. And he's in a new relationship. That's the other thing. Like, in a new public, if I was his girlfriend, I would be like, say something else about it. Say another thing about the old relationship.
And I ain't playing.
Say it again, and I'm out of here. You just go get her. I'm not dealing with this.
Shout out to Next Friday. No, I agree with you. So first, I want to address the first part. What is really considered cheating? Yeah, I think that we explained this a while back in an episode, that cheating is cheating on a relationship. So doing things that, I think that's a great definition. Doing things that your partner would not approve of, that you feel like you would have to hide. But I'm starting to feel like, with doing this relationship thing, and I know Rhonda doesn't like the new terms and the new relationship.
Not all of them.
The new relationship dictionary that needs to be published every 3 months as the 27th edition, the 80th edition, the 90 with the new updated terms, so you can keep up.
Yes.
But I do feel like there has to be, like, because of the public perception of what cheating means, I feel like we gotta find another word, because if we're saying that flirting is cheating, or texting somebody flirtatious is cheating, in somebody's mind, cheating, in most people's mind, cheating seems like a nuclear offense. Like, lying is one thing, you know, there's mistrust, not doing what you said you were going to do. But then if you say somebody cheated on you, that sounds nuclear. Like, no, what did they do? Well, he was flirting with this girl at the bar. huh? Like that was cheating? Because we always think that means like breaking up. And I think about it like breaking the law. It's like if you tell somebody, oh, they broke the law, it's like that can mean from speeding all the way up to killing somebody.
Yep.
Like it's a big thing, but it's
Yeah.
like I think that we got to find a different, or either redefine what cheating means or figure out a different word that can define like some of the smaller versions of it versus like actually physically being with somebody. Because I feel like some of that is a more nuclear option to where like this relationship about to blow up. I don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
Ripping your clothes up, throwing them bleach on the clothes, all that stuff.
Right.
I've seen that happen.
Same. Ditto.
Or the situation of like I said, you texting somebody inappropriately, or you're, you know, just doing things that you know you shouldn't be doing, even though you may be like, I ain't gonna cross that line, but you know what? I'm gonna get right up on it.
Right.
I'm gonna get up right.
I'm gonna get right up on the line. I'm gonna lean on the line.
So that's what I wonder too, is like cheating a lot of times is what people would consider crossing the line. But we just need something to define getting up to the line.
Yeah.
Because that's inappropriate too, and not
maybe
right.
that's what defines it. You're having an inappropriate relationship with this person. You're not having a sexual relationship with them.
Inappropriate.
Yes, you're having a relationship that makes me uncomfortable with them.
Yeah. You can't be doing that. But I think with the Party and Megan situation, like I said, we all been younger, and we all know how it feels to feel like there's a perception out there of you, and you feel like you have to defend that perception, and that is not true. And like you said, if you grow up in a different area, you're just used to kind of not, you know, worrying about it. And I was fine when they both kept it on wax. Like we talked about it artistically, and you see a lot of older artists, and not even old, but just older, when they express themselves in situations, you hear it on
the music.
And you don't hear them really talking about it outside of that. They put everything they need to do into the art. And then also they do a great job of, you know, making it direct, but not as direct as you think it would be. And it's like, is this talking about that person? Maybe it could be, but like,
maybe not.
You gotta do
you
some
can't
work
do
to
that with
figure it
Party
out.
Song.
No.
But Megan's, yes, it was ambiguous.
Yeah.
His not so much.
But I think what you mentioned with Will and Jada is important. And that's one thing that I always say to Bree, is like, I don't mind you sharing something that we got over and that we're on the other side of. And the question you have to ask yourself when you're sharing stuff about your relationship, what is the public benefit from this? To shame somebody, and that's one thing, right? But to say this was an awful thing that happened, however, this is how I pushed through, or this is the signs that I saw to know that this was a thing. That's a public benefit, I think, of uplifting, helping somebody who could possibly be in that situation. You know, that's something I feel like is okay. But just kind of the gossipy conversations, just talking to be talking, I don't feel like that's very healthy. And then ultimately for yourself, I don't feel like it's a good look for you.
Nope. I agree. Like, even when I think about another younger couple that just went through a breakup, I thought that them making a public statement together was a bit much, but it was concise and clear. And that's Lori Harvey and Damson Idris.
Yeah.
We broke up. That's it. Like, no, they aren't musicians, but they both could have very well picked up their phones just like everybody else does and set it up and talked into a camera and said, well, we broke up because of this, that, and that, and that. Even with Lori and Michael B. Jordan, we broke up. That's it. Why? When? Did he cheat? Is she lying? It's not really for us to know unless, like you said, there is some sort of public benefit to it. That, like, I went through something with this person. I'm telling my story with hopes that it helps somebody else if it was like traumatic or something like that. But people break up, and I'm not saying it's like, let's just act like it's all normal, but it is. People break up, and it doesn't need to be public fodder for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. That's just dramatic.
Even with that situation too, some people aren't used to maturity. So when they're greeted with that, they almost can't believe it as being something true.
Right.
It's like people don't amicably.
Yeah.
There we go.
You got it.
Got to sound it out. Just break up. There ain't no like just calm, cool, collected. This just wasn't for us. We're moving on. We're friends. We're still cool. Oh, that's not a thing.
Right.
No, you can't do that. They was all kissed up. There got to be drama. And it's like, sometimes there ain't drama.
Sometimes
it's just like people come to a point and they're like, yeah,
this not working.
it's not working. It's like, cool. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I enjoyed my time. Like, we just had fun. We both know what we want. It's not, we're not aligned on what we want.
We're
and we can
moving
just move
on.
forward from there.
That's it. That's it. They both have just to me played a little bit. Megan has played a little bit. Party has played a little bit. And I would like for them to just focus on their new lives, their new music, and take us out of this relationship breakup group chat.
Rhonda said, remove her from the chat.
Yeah, we good. We got it. Thanks, y'all.
Also, let us know what you think in the comments.
Please.
You ready to go to our real life love scenario, or a real love scenario, actually?
I'm ready. We got a lengthy one today.
All right.
So I'm going to get myself together. All right. It is from Anonymous. She says, I'm writing in because I'm currently having a difficult time with my boyfriend of 2.5 years. I'm in my early 30s. He's in his late 30s. When we got together, I made it clear to him that I was dating intentionally for marriage and that I want to have kids in the future. He said he wanted that as well. However, based on the experience in the second year of our relationship, I now have doubt in my mind on whether or not we are truly in alignment. We both experienced a lot in our lives before and since meeting, including his brother suddenly passing away. I was very supportive, created safety for him to share his grief, but I feel that there are trust issues that won't allow him to be vulnerable with me when he's going through things. He only wants to discuss the good experiences. We had a tough time earlier this year, and his inability to be vulnerable caused me to consider ending the relationship, but I gave him another chance to show me differently. I'm a direct communicator, and I'm not afraid to admit my faults or mistakes. He struggles with this as well, and making certain life decisions, especially when they involve someone else. For months now, we've been talking about moving in together, but almost every conversation has been initiated by me. I brought it up again recently, as well as other concerns, to make sure we were on the same page, but we weren't. And now he is saying we have to delay moving in together, and he just doesn't understand my concerns. I was surprised but pissed, because had I not brought it up, would he just be thinking that things are great between us and that I'm happy in this relationship? This conversation turned into an argument where he was defensive, and all he kept saying was, I have a lot going on now. We saw each other once after this argument, had another argument the day after, and we haven't spoken since. It's been over 2 weeks. I reached out to his family after both disagreements to try to get an understanding of where his head is, and I'm left confused and hurt. I've watched him get his second bachelor's degree, and now he's in grad school for the next 3 years. He never told me that he thought I was in the way of him achieving his educational and career goals, and it's really hurting me that the things he once told me he wanted were seemingly based on lies and delusion. At this point, I feel he is showing me exactly how he feels about me. I don't think I should be the one going after him, because I feel I'd be enabling his passive behavior, and as a woman, I don't think I should be chasing a man. I've been compassionate, giving him grace, and had time to improve and work on himself. I'm trying to be optimistic that things will work out ultimately. I know I cannot force it, and I will accept it if this is not what he wants and move on with my life. But do you think we can repair things from this point, or should we just go our separate ways? How is it possible that someone can just switch up their future plans and focus in life and not communicate any of that to their partner? Do you have any suggestions for communicating with someone who is avoidant and emotionally immature? Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, Anonymous.
We appreciate it.
Yes. Lots of details. I, of course, had to edit it because it was longer than that. I do want to read one thing, though, because she did say something pretty nice. So I wanted to share that after. She said that she recently discovered the podcast after seeing our clips on Instagram. She loves the show, and she really appreciates the perspectives that we both provide for men and women in a realistic and relatable way. So it's a nice little review.
We appreciate
just
that.
Go put that on the thing and add a 5-star to it.
Exactly. And I'm glad that you feel that way, because we're going to give you both perspectives on this one.
Yes, we are.
We are. Where do you want to start, Rhonda?
I think there are some just interesting themes in this scenario.
Okay.
And to me, one of the biggest overarching ones is all these transitions that her partner seems to be experiencing. And I'm going to assume that she may not be experiencing as many as he is. Like, we're talking school, we're talking a loss of a family member, and just how those types of heavy transitions have an impact on your relationship, because I think there's no way to really get around that. Like, especially if you're young, they're in their 30s. Like, life is constantly moving and transitioning. So just kind of wanted to talk through that, like the pros of the transitions and the cons of the transitions, because I hear a lot of cons in her writing.
Got you. Yeah, I think that there, It's so many different ways to look at it, and there are so many different situations, and it's hard to say a one size fit all answer
Right.
based on somebody's situation because you're just not in it and you're not in somebody's head and you don't know how things are being said and what tone they're being said. But there's a few things that I want to talk about with this. So number one, we're talking about tragedy. My words today. And I was talking to my cousin about this, and he mentioned something that I thought was like really insightful. He was like, there's two ways to go about tragedy in a relationship. He said either people use it to get closer to the person that they're with, or people use it to distance themselves from the person that they're with.
Yeah.
And that sometimes people are in something they've been in for a long time and they're looking for a reason to escape it. And sometimes they can use that tragedy to escape that situation that they're in, and use it as an excuse as to why they can't just do this anymore and they just need to walk away. And they just, like, some people do use it in that situation. Not saying it's this situation, Anonymous, but I'm saying that is a possibility. And also on the other side, which is a lot of times the best for relationships, is that people tend to go closer during these times to know that somebody's there for them when you're going through something. They need that support and know that you have their back. So that's one thing about tragedy that's always tough, is that sometimes, you never know how somebody's going to react in that situation. And it can be tough. But I think that in life transitions in general, first, it's always a shock to the system, because a lot of times that's not what your expectation is for that relationship when you go through that transition. Because I feel like a lot of times what makes an experience good or bad is based off of your expectation that you have for that experience. And I'm not saying don't have expectations, but I think you should add, whenever you go into a relationship, that one of the expectations is that things can change.
Yes.
And things could change for a while, and you have to understand that that may happen and communicate with your partner how to transition through that change. But lastly, I think that the biggest thing when it comes to a transition is, especially something that's initiated by you per se, I would say, is that you have to understand and identify who the burden falls on when it comes to this transition. Like, who does this burden, it's going to be a burden to somebody, but who does that really fall on? And I think there are three questions that you need to ask yourself when it comes to that. It's like, how long will it be? What do you hope to get out of this by putting the burden on somebody else? And then what is it that you're asking me to do, or asking that person to do? So number one is, how long will it be? Like, I know sometimes even with tragedy it's hard, but if you're asking somebody to take on a responsibility that would normally be yours, or take on a burden, try to give some timetable to it, because a lot of times they're putting on more for you to be able to have, whether that's you going to school, whether that's you getting a degree, they're putting on more for you, more burden on their self for you to help you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve. Please give them a timeline.
Yes.
Please give them the light at the end of the tunnel. Please give them some hope. And even if you say 3 months and we get to 3 months and you got to renew the 3 months, like, that's another thing. But at least say, like, just for this time, do you mind doing X, Y, and Z? Even with a family member, hey, can I stay with you just for 3 months? Just need to get on my feet. And once that, I'll figure it out. So that's number one. The second question was, what do you hope to get out of this? Because I think that if you are planning to put your burdens on somebody else, you need to communicate what that sacrifice that they're making, you're hoping to get out of them making that sacrifice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if I don't know what me taking on X, Y, and Z is for, then I'm less reluctant to do it, or to do it happily, or to really help you out. But if you let me know, like, hey, I'm going to school to get my dental degree or whatever, and after these 2 years, if you can help me with this, then my projected salary is this, and we can do this. And then once I do this and get here, whatever you want to do, we can now switch, and I'll take on let me know what the plan, what are you getting out of this?
Yes.
And the last one is, what is it that you're asking me to do, which I think is the most important thing. Like, define truly, what are you asking of me when you're going through this transition?
Especially if it's extreme, not to cut you off, an extreme deviation from what I'm used to doing with you. Yes.
Like, what are you asking me? I'm in a relationship with you. You have a kid, but it's not our kid. Like, do you need me to pick your daughter up from school? Is that the new transition? Because now you have classes during this time. Like, I need to know.
Are you asking me for less date nights? Have less expectations
less
around
time to spend with me. Like, I need to know what that is. And I think if you put those three questions, if you answer those three questions for the person that you're asking for support from when it comes to this life transition, then I feel like it's creates an environment that helps not only you get through it, but also it not to feel like this resentful burning filled, like hateful time to where it's like you feel like you're stepping on pins and needles for the person helping you. Because that
Absolutely.
sucks too. I've seen people like that where it's like, oh, I'm helping you, but I'm gonna let you know every
Oh
single
my
day
goodness. I don't want
that
it.
I'm helping you. Then at that point, you be like, you know what?
I don't need
I'm
it.
good.
That's okay.
Like I don't need you telling me every day how much you sacrificing for me, how much you doing this, how much I ain't. That's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's all right. I don't need that. I don't need that. You make so many really good points. And I think, a lot of times we forget that a lot of what we do is not new. Practically nothing that we do or experience in relationships is a new concept.
nope.
So there have been people who have gone before us, or just have lived this same life. They got together at a certain age, and somebody decided to go back to school, or somebody lost a parent or lost a sibling. I feel like sometimes there are blueprints, and they may not be people that you know personally. It could be someone else's story, like we talked about at the top of the episode, where they went through something and they are now sharing their story in hopes to help someone else who will walk the same walk. I think, for them, it could be doing some research to figure out people who have gone through these types of transitions. How did they manage? What tools did they use? I think those three questions to me are like such a guiding, kind of a guiding way to get to that. But it requires a lot of open communication, and again, it withdraws from the romantic side of a relationship. This is on the mechanical side of the
Yep.
relationship. This is on the logistical side of the relationship. I understand our emotions get all weaved into this because we love people and we like them and we want to like just have that warm and fluffy feeling. But there are mechanics to make a relationship work. There are logistics to make it work. And you all have to figure out, how do you adjust the logistics when you are going through a time that is strenuous or stressful or unexpected or unplanned. You have to be able to have kind of like, in school, you would have to do fire drills. You did those to prepare for real fires. You
For
did
sure.
those so that you would know exactly where to go, what door to leave out of. It is really doing that same thing in your relationship, creating just kind of some fallbacks, if you will, some things that will say, okay, you're about to go through this, or you're about to get a second degree. You can't necessarily prepare for the loss of people. I mean, you can, but to me, that's harder to plan for. But you can kind of think about like having these questions and these conversations, like, have you lost people? Have you lost anybody close to you? Or how were you during that time? Like when you lost your grandmother, when you lost your dad, like how did that have an impact on your life? It's having these conversations when you're getting to know someone and when you're actively in a relationship with them, so that you can hopefully get a good sense of who they will be when that happens, if that happens. But the mechanics, that's just a lot of communication. And it is not being so fluffy eyed and bushy tailed, just about, oh, he's going to go to college, but somehow he's still going to be able to take me on all these dates, think about me all the time, prioritize me, give me all the attention that I need. Realistically, you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Everything can't be the number one priority at the same time.
Nope.
It can't be.
And I want to make it very clear because I'm a married man. I got married young, and I know a lot of men who are happily married, love their wife, great fathers, great wives. I mean, great husbands. And I will say, contrary to popular belief, that the commitment to that woman happened way before he put a ring on her finger. That if you know that this is somebody that you possibly want to spend the rest of your life with, you are not making life decisions absence of their opinion.
Yeah.
You consult them, you think about them in all the decisions that you're making, even before you actually
Make them.
make them or become engaged to her or anything, because you see yourself having a future with this woman. And I know a lot of times it's like, oh, Lester put a ring on it. I ain't doing this. I ain't doing that. It's like, no. Men who know what they want and they find what they want, they move in intention with the woman that they want. And that's the reality. So if you are ever in a relationship and somebody's making a decision, a life decision absent of you, you might need to reevaluate that relationship and have a conversation. It doesn't mean that it's ultimately not going to work,
Right.
but you might need to have a conversation, because it's like, am I in your future?
Right.
You bought a house and ain't even
think to
talk to
to me
me
about
about this, and we've been together for 2 years. Like that could be it. I've heard that before.
Yep.
Or like I don't know if he consulted her about going to school or doing anything like that, or going like. But all these are major life transitions, especially like if you're going into debt to do something, and like all these things. It's like these are things that affect our relationship in the future.
Yes.
So if somebody is in a relationship with you and they don't talk to you about that life transition, or talk to you about something that could be a major life transition, you should look at that relationship. And I will also say too, on the flip side, especially for anonymous in this situation, one thing I just had to learn just in all relationships is that you can't put how you would deal with things and how you would react with things on somebody else.
Yeah.
So you would think, oh, if I were to lose somebody and this was this, then this is how I would act.
Yeah.
And then also I've seen sometimes when it comes to losing people, they would see their relationship with that person, and you may see them all the time, and they might be like, I'm not even that close with my brother. Oh, my brother get on my nerves and all this stuff. But then when they pass, it hits them. But you sometimes may look and be like, you wasn't even close. Yeah, but you don't know.
Grief is complicated.
You don't know like what there could be a feeling of regret, a feeling of guilt, a feeling like you don't know what that emotion is. And also, sometimes they're trying to figure out what they even think or how they even feel, but you're like demanding them to tell you I'm here, like, and you over manage a situation that they themselves don't even know what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
And you can't will somebody else through their own grief process.
You can't. I would say grief is probably one of the most complicated feelings or journeys in life that I have experienced. Man. I have even experienced like a delay, like the grief hit, the heaviest part of the grief hit years later. Like I went through the grief early on, but I thought that was good. Then like years later, it felt like it had just happened. So grief is very complicated, and I'm with you. You cannot bully someone into grieving in the way that you would want them to. I do think you can pay attention to the fact that someone is avoiding grieving.
Yeah.
Right. I do think that is, it's scary. Like if you see someone just completely avoiding, acknowledging, dealing with, but in their dynamic, they don't live together. Like you all live in two different households. He could be having a grieving process. He just may not be doing it with you. And I know that, again, to your point, Dre, when someone has a future with you and they see a future with you, 9 times out of 10, that is a process that you would be a part of, even if it's just to a small degree. Like even if I'm dealing with the heavier parts of it by myself, but later on when I see you, I might tell you that I had a tough day today, or like the grief was really overwhelming this morning and I just slept in, or I didn't turn in a paper on time, and so now I'm behind in a class. They would usually involve you, even if it's just telling you that they're dealing with it. If they are completely avoiding communicating that process to you altogether, or they're just not having one altogether, I do think that is something to be concerned about, for sure. Very, very concerned about, because like I said, grief is so complicated. It's so, you can be happy and not happy, but like happy that a person is not suffering. Like, when people pass away, but for the last 4 or 5 years of their life, they were in so much pain. You feel joy that they have relief from that. So you have that feeling. You could be angry at God. You could be angry at life because it's like, I needed this person. Why would you take this person from me? Of course, sadness, which I think is what most people see grief as, is like crying and moping and all of these things. Grief can also be very motivational for some people. You lose someone and then it creates a purpose that, like, I need to make whoever that was really proud, or it makes you appreciate life more. So then you get this real like energy about yourself, like so-and-so died. It could be me any day. I got to go out here and do this and this and this. This is why I say grief is so complicated. I named like 5 things just now.
That's
5
real.
Feelings that can come from grief.
I feel like the common feeling that people want to see with grief is
tears,
not hysterical and too bad to where it's like, oh, she doing a lot or he doing a lot, but enough to feel like, oh, this really impacted them.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like you said, that's not how it works. Like I've seen it the opposite way. Some people get mad at some people for not being some people get mad at people for being too happy or in a
Around
good
that
mood
time. Yes.
around that time. And it's like, well, if I would have lost my brother, I wouldn't have be all smiling
He
and stuff
outside, and this just a
outside. And
week later.
it's just a week. And it's like, you can't control the process. Like, you don't know what somebody's going through. And I think it's true what you said, that it hits you later. I think even when my dad passed when I was 16, it hit me more as an adult than it ever did at that point, because
Yeah.
I didn't understand a lot of the sacrifices that he made and a lot of things that he did to, like, he delayed surgery to watch my football season, and us go to the state championship and stuff like that. So that was like months of delaying the surgery. I didn't know that. And then as I grow up and have my wife and now start to become a father and looking at what that means for me, and it's just, then I have that thought process of my dad and think about him more and more, probably more than I did when I was 16 or 17. And I'm like, often I find myself like, damn, I wish my dad was here.
So
like,
you could call
just to
him.
call him, or he could just see like the man I became and meet my wife, and like, it hits you different.
It does. It
And
does.
sometimes you have those days, and I love that I'm in a relationship where I can communicate that to my wife and let her know, like, oh, this is what I'm going through, or this is something that she's going through, or there's things that she's trying to figure out. And I also talked about in a previous episode that grief isn't always grieving the loss of a person, it's grieving the loss of a situation. Like, Bree had a business called Shameless for the longest, and it was everything her brand was built on, but she had to walk away from it because it made sense to. But was that easy? No,
absolutely not.
That was everything. Her identity was wrapped up in that thing. So it's like, it took years for her to fully like get to a point to where she was okay with like, all right, there's no like, it's coming back later. This is just my life now. And I understand this and I feel good about it. I'm at peace about it. And it's like something I had to help her through. And that's the thing too, is like some of the transitions are quick. Some of them are long.
Yeah.
And it's just like, when we say relationships are work, that's the work.
This is the work.
That's the work.
This is the work.
But the beauty of it is going through the same grief alone and going through it with somebody who loves you and is there to care for you and help you and make the sad days a little bit brighter. It's better.
Yeah,
Trust
for
me.
sure. And I do want to give credit to her for saying that she did all that she could to create a safe space to receive him when he was ready to be received. But there is a trust issue that it doesn't sound like it has anything to do with her. But again, I don't know. It could. But if it doesn't, it just could be, men, as we've said before, they aren't always as comfortable being very vulnerable with their feelings in any capacity, let alone any feeling that is associated to coming across weak or vulnerable. I don't think vulnerability is weakness, but in general, a lot of people do. A lot of men, and I'm not saying this as a dig, but just like this societal conditioning that you always have to be stoic and strong, and if you can't let anybody think that you're weak, and that somehow crying or feeling a sad feeling, or literally just like, I'm not strong today. I don't have it today. I don't have it to like anchor and support the whole family. Today, I need to be anchored. Today, I need to be supported. His trust issues could literally just be rooted in that he is a man and he has potentially been groomed and conditioned to not trust the deepest, lowest parts of his feelings with anybody. That could not, it could not be personal to her. It just could be his way. And that's a process that you could encourage him to work through, but you can't control it. You all you can do is say, you don't have to be that way. I think you should tap into your feelings, and here's how I did it, or here's some resources where you could do that, but you can't make them. You simply can't.
And I would say, before we move to the next thing, it's just understanding. And I think what you said, as men, this is important in how we process things and deal with problems. Is that, let's say you have a stack of papers, let's say mail, we all get a stack of mail on the counter. And if you're living in today, living in the present, there are 3 ways that you could really make sure that stack of paper or those stack of envelopes aren't on your mind right now. Number 1 is you ignore it. Number 2 is you can hide it. Or number 3, you can go through it.
Yep.
Open each envelope, open each paper, see what it is, trash the things that need to be trashed, or keep the things that need to be kept.
Yeah.
But the going through it is a lot more challenging. It takes a lot more time.
Yep.
It may not be the happiest experience because you may open some bills, some things you got to pay, some credit card
might
debt,
find some surprises in there.
Like, it's not fun.
No.
But the thing is that if you ignore it, guess where it's still going to be tomorrow?
There.
And if you ignore it again, it's still going to be waiting for it. And guess what? If you hide it, feel a little bit better, sweep it under the rug. But guess what? It's still gonna come at some point.
Yep.
And what's probably gonna happen is next time the mail come again, you're gonna hide that. Next time the mail come again, you're gonna hide that. Next time the mail you're gonna come again, you're gonna hide that. But then the next time, at some point,
It's gonna be worse.
it's gonna be worse. And then you're gonna get to the point to where the bill collector gonna come. Or the eviction notice gonna come.
With a garnishment gonna
Or
come.
the garnishment gonna come.
Yeah.
And then you gotta figure out where's that envelope. And there's a drawer room full of it. And now you still gotta go through
Dre,
all
you don't
of
know
this
my
crap.
life. Damn,
you
that
gotta
happened
go
to me,
through
y'all.
all this crap. But sometimes as men, when we face with problems, sometimes the thing that we're taught sometimes is just, ignore it, hide it, push through it. Like that, push through it, push through it, push through it. Don't go in it and go through it.
Yeah.
Push through it and like just push it to the side. And if you're a man, those things shouldn't bother you. You just go. But the way to truly heal from it is to go through it.
Absolutely.
It may not be the best. It may hurt sometime. You may not like what you see.
Yeah, may not like what you
But
feel.
if you get it right now,
then
it'll benefit you in the long run.
100%. 100%. And that just, it goes into the kind of the next conversation, which is the other theme of just communication.
Yes.
Man, how many episodes out of the however many episodes we have, how many of them really boil down to communication problems?
Every one, because it's the foundation of relationships.
Practically every single one. And I think there is a communication error here. It made me just want to kind of talk through communication styles, because I was even interested to see what they were and like what mine is, because I like to believe that I'm an effective communicator. Not all the time. I definitely have my pitfalls. I definitely don't always get it right, especially depending on the setting, where if I don't feel that I can just not be judged by what I say, of course, my style of communication will morph based on that. But it sounds like she's very direct or like an aggressive communicator, and he is very passive.
Yes.
And that is just, it's oil and water. It's very, very, very hard to have that type of communication. So I wanted to talk about the communication styles and like what you think yours is. I'm going to read the 5.
Okay.
Because overall psychology sees 5 common communication styles. The first one is assertive communication. It's clear, it's upfront, it's direct without being pushy or disrespectful. Aggressive communication, similar to assertive, except it's intimidating, it's argumentative, it's hostile, and it can come across as disrespect. Passive communication, which is very submissive, easygoing, very people-pleasing. People who communicate this way, they really suffer with people who are assertive communicators, and even worse with aggressive communicators. Then you have the combo, the passive aggressive, where you're a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm a little bit of that sometimes. And then the last one is a manipulative communicator. You literally use communication to negatively influence people to kind of do what you want them to do, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit them. It's all about how it benefits you. And it says that this style can be very hard to see sometimes. So it can look like some of the other ones. You usually don't know that you're being communicated with manipulatively until it's a little too late.
Yeah.
You've been manipulated by the time you catch that.
Yeah.
So out of those 5 styles, which one would you say you fall in?
So I think that I would say for me, I'm more assertive.
Okay.
But I think that we all display these at some point in our lives and some points in our relationships. And I think that this may be weird to say, but I think they're all necessary at certain points.
I can see that.
I think that assertive, it should be kind of the baseline for how you communicate. Communicate with grace, communicate with having an open mind, communicate with patience. But, say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Be direct, but not disrespectful. But I can see in relationships how every one of those communication styles can work at some point or are needed in some point. I see the aggressive communication style as being nuclear. That's the nuclear option.
Yeah.
Sometimes you gotta go nuclear though.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you gotta
Not on your partner.
Not on your, sometimes like to the sense of, don't you know, sometimes when it comes to like, let's say the legal system and they are saying that, let's say they get the top gang member and they sentence him to like something crazy. And basically the point of that is just making an example so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
I've learned that sometimes in relationships, in certain points, you have to not go nuclear to the point to where you're blowing everything up, but you got to truly make a point of something to know how serious this is if we go down this route again. Like this is not something that we can do. This is not something I'm going to tolerate. And you need to know that this ain't an assertive I'm giving. No. And I've only had to do that once or twice. And it wasn't even necessarily disrespectful. It was more just, I don't really care what you're talking about right now. This is not what we're doing.
Got it.
Like that type of situation. I wouldn't suggest that being an option that you use often, but I do feel like sometimes that can be necessary in a relationship to keep going, just to understand this is not a game. This could blow up everything. This is it. But of course, on that definition, it talks about being disrespectful. I don't think you should ever be disrespectful because call somebody out their name.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes you do communicate with an aggressiveness that's like, I'm not here for the back and forth. I'm not here to like take your side. No, this is what's going on here. And then sometimes the passive aggressive, I think the manipulation, passive aggressiveness, it should all be, if you do it, it's done in like a light way.
Yeah.
Not like a truly detrimental way. That shouldn't be your primary form of communicating. But we've all been there, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, listen, I asked you to take this thing to the car 5 times. You know what's passive aggressive? Hanging it right on the door as they're about to walk out, or tied to their keys or something like that. Because
passive aggressive usually involves a good amount of sarcasm.
A good amount of sarcasm where it's like, yeah, I done asked you pretty much, and you didn't do it. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna put it right, tie it right in the fridge next to your little coffee thing or something like that, so you can see that I'm just nicely asking you again for the 10th time.
Yep.
To do this thing for me, please.
My favorite little passive aggressive way of communication is asking it in a question that you and I both know the answer to, but once I get it out, you're gonna be like,
"You right? Yeah,
stop playing with me. That ain't no real question." Like, so did you forget something this morning? That's me.
I do that.
Instead of just being like, "Hey, you forgot something."
We don't lock the door. You going back out the house? At some point today? No, I'm not. Oh, why you ask that? Oh, I mean, the door is just unlocked.
The doors is just unlocked.
I just didn't.
Oh no, I would have framed that like, so do you want somebody to take all of our things or kill us? I'm just curious if you just don't value the things that we have in this house or your life. Just curious on your thoughts on that. Like,
and I feel like sometimes that's necessary. Like in a relationship, like it's harmless. You know, if you
it should be used to be harmless.
It should be used to be harmless, but it's like, how many different ways you want me to say this? I can give it to you different ways.
Yes.
And then the manipulation one should be the most harmless that you ever do. And it may just be like to influence your partner to pick a restaurant that you want, or like to wear something that you like or something like that. It's like, I've done that to try to get Bree to wear the curls versus the straight hair. Like, you know, trying to, play that game, but it's all, those forms are more like harmless.
Yes.
I think the assertive communication style is probably the most beneficial, the ones that's the most effective. And that should be the baseline. I see it as like one of those grids to where it's like you have the shade part of your grid and like the other parts, the other quadrants where the other parts are on. It's like small little like blip of color there, but then the main part is on assertive.
I agree. I think assertive communication is the best way because...
Are you assertive?
I would say I'm primarily assertive.
Okay.
Secondary, passive aggressive. Manipulative communication, while we definitely said like it's not bad in the way that we use it, obviously when someone is actually using it to harm you, it's one of the worst. That and aggressive are the two worst communication styles to have. But yes, I would say assertive because I'm a communicator. I really like to talk out things, even if it's a light topic. I still sometimes really like to flush it out, or I like to be like a flush it out, but be succinct with flushing it out. Like, let's get to the point, let's get it figured out. Let's be direct. But I also want to hear what you think about it. I love dialogue. I don't want to just direct and shoot and point directives to you. And you just need to do what I tell you to do. So yes, I'm passive aggressive when, like the sandwich effect, like that. People would put the sandwich effective communication, if you all don't know what that is, it's when you basically sandwich something bad in between two good things. So if you think about work, like this person comes in late all the time, it's like starting the conversation with, we so appreciate everything you bring to this team, and you've been really dedicated, but I'm just noticing, here comes the bad, that you have a challenge with getting to work on time. And just really need to have you button that up, because when you do, you will be even more valuable to the team. When you're coming on time, people that look up to you will see that you are committed to being dependable. I am a passive aggressive in that way. Like if I don't agree with you, I will find a way to say it or package it in a way that doesn't feel like a blow. But other times you just can't do that because everybody doesn't receive that very well. So
and you gotta be tactful with that too,
you
to
do.
not come off like condescending or sarcastic in the praise. So make sure when you are giving them a compliment, it is a real compliment,
Yes.
not like some false, fake, like
For
buttery
sure.
type of thing.
For sure.
But
Go ahead. Go.
Oh, okay. No, but I was saying that I just want to be clear. I'm not saying aggressive should be your main communication style.
yeah.
I'm not saying you should be disrespectful.
Never.
Not saying that you should be ignoring your partner or anything, but I do understand that we've all communicated aggressively before. And sometimes in those situations, I would say we feel like it has been justified given the actions that were taken. So sometimes it can be a useful style, but not used often.
Yes.
But never with disrespect, I would say.
Yes. And I can see aggressive communication being necessary sometimes outside of a relationship. Like if you are in a situation where someone is about to bring harm to you, or they're being disrespectful to you, it is not always possible to take the high road when they are low. You are going to meet them right where they are, and so I can see it being appropriate in those spaces.
But one thing I wanted to say when it comes to communication, and it reminded me of when you were explaining the whole scenario at first, is that I had to realize in my relationship to really listen for questions.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that for a long time in my life. In every part of my life, every relationship that I am in with my friends, family, listen for questions. Because a lot of times you're in conversations where people ain't asking you nothing.
Nope.
They just saying things. And you start to insert your own self and your own feelings and your own thoughts into a conversation that they didn't really ask you for.
Right.
So I learned to listen for questions, and if I want to give my opinion, I ask for it. So if I go out to Rhonda and let's say, I don't know, I'm trying to buy Brie a scarf. Let's say, I just go to Rhonda and I'm just talking. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking to buy Brie a scarf and just been looking on Amazon and stuff like that. But I don't know, I'll figure it out. I didn't ask Rhonda a question.
Right.
Like Rhonda could just be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. Or some people go, well, if you're looking for a scarf, I would say you can go to JCPenney's, you could try Nordstrom's, and that's also, you got to understand, sometimes that could be harmless, but sometimes you're inserting yourself where somebody didn't ask you
for that.
to be inserted. And the proper response in that, although I didn't ask a question, where Rhonda being like, well, are you looking for like some places to find some good scarves?
Right.
Because I could recommend some. And then if I say yes, then it's like, oh, okay, here are some places.
Yeah.
But I had to learn that, especially being with a woman and being with my wife, sometimes she's just talking. Just talking. And she's not looking for a solution. And I think you have to also, we always frame that with women in mind when we talk about things like that. But also with men, it's like, if he's telling you something or talking to you about something, just see if he's asking you for something, like, or what he's asking you for. Like sometimes you're just offering your opinions. It's like, I ain't asked you. Like I really didn't. I'm just talking about something that I'm going through. And if you want to offer help, ask me. Hey, like, I hear you. Do you need anything? Is there anything you want me to do? How can I support you?
Do you want the support?
Yes. Do you want me to look up this for you? Do you want me to grab some food for you? Like, instead of just offering your own opinions and thoughts in a conversation that somebody didn't ask you any questions about. So that's my one takeaway with this, is just start to listen when you're talking to people and seeing if they're actually asking you questions.
Yeah. I think in the scenario, clearly we laid it out right at the top before we got into the communication styles, but they appear to have two very different communication styles, even down to the fact that he really prefers to not discuss tough times or negative experiences. He likes to really focus on the good. I do think that that's very hard to do. I get it. I'm a glass half full type of person myself, but to literally avoid the reality that things are not always good, that things are not always possible, is almost like you're trying to create a false sense of life. You're trying to make life something that it truly isn't. It can be an overall really good experience. It can be an overall amazing experience. But to me, what makes life a really amazing experience is acknowledging the challenges, acknowledging how you manage them, and acknowledge how you got through them and celebrate the wins. That is actually a part of having an amazing life as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
do think, there's just a lot of clashing when it comes to that she really wants to talk through and be solutions oriented. And you do, again, need those things if you're going to do the long haul. If you're going to do life together with someone for the rest of your life, you cannot literally operate as if things aren't ever going to go wrong.
Very
Like,
true.
even if they just go a little wrong, a little bit at a time. No one walking this earth can say, I never had a bad experience my entire life. Like, it's literally impossible. So to avoid communicating about them is very concerning. And I think they are just butting heads because she's maybe not changing, but he is going through a lot of changes. And I think he is turning into someone that she wouldn't necessarily prefer to be in a relationship with in the way that he is right now, which is a very tough reality in a relationship.
Yeah, and I want to say before we get to the next topic is that when communicating, I noticed in the scenario that she said, I think she said that he was getting defensive, right, on how she was communicating and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
He just kept saying, look, I got a lot going on right now.
Yeah,
Dismissive.
and I think that sometimes when we're right and we feel like we know we're right, or we put our own feelings on other people of how they should behave in a certain situation, we think that just because we're right, that we can say it however we want to say it and say it, I guess, assertively or aggressively. And because we're right, that's okay. And if you're saying he got defensive, it may be true that he's in a place that is not open to receive it, but also just look at your own self and how you're communicating. Because I know that even with the best communicators, that sometimes when emotions get involved, you use language or a tone that seems accusatory. And when you are accusing someone of something, they get defensive.
Yep.
And then the message is lost for the most part. So I would say we know that, and we're talking about his issues all throughout this scenario, but look at yourself and say, like, am I communicating in an effective way?
Yeah.
Am I trying to put my own thoughts and how I would deal with things on him and how he should be dealing with things? Am I asking him what he needs, and not in an aggressive way, like, tell me now, tell me now, tell me now, and trying to micromanage his grief or his issues or his mindset? Or am I giving him the space to let him know that this is an open arena? You have the time and space to let me know what's going on when you feel up to it. Because I think sometimes we feel like creating an environment for openness is telling somebody, open up to me.
Yeah.
Like, tell me.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, sometimes people just need the space to know, like, to come to you essentially, and not you telling them they need to come to you or you going to them. And I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you need to create a space to people to come to you sometimes and not you always going to them. And I think that that's what happens a lot of times in relationships, is that sometimes people just need to know they can come to you. And if you give them that space to, they will.
Yeah, agreed. I do think that there may be missing pieces, as I said earlier, in how she may be communicating, but she did say that she's been very compassionate. She's been very graceful. Doesn't mean that there haven't been some challenges with perhaps how she's communicated what she wants and needs in this moment. But to be dismissed when you are trying to have communication or when you're trying to create that space is tough. I think, with him losing his brother, getting his second bachelor's degree, and now he's in graduate school, and you two don't live together, and your plan to live together, you revisited it again, and he was just kind of like, yeah, we can't do that right now. Like, I'm focused on this. And it didn't sound like there was a lot of mutuality on the topic. Like you were like, I want to move together, and he's like, she said he gave endless excuses as to why they can't do it. You all are literally in the same relationship but on two very different pages. Like, you are ready to move into the next step of commitment with him. he is not ready to move into the next step of commitment. He is committed to things that he is working on for himself personally, which could obviously benefit you. Him having more degrees would potentially mean that he's going to have a better chance at having a higher income, which would potentially make your life together more comfortable. Or he's getting more educated so he can contribute more to his community. Or when there's a time to have a baby, he can be a father that's not just compassionate and loving, but he can teach his child things or create a legacy for them. He's doing things that would benefit a family long term. But your idea of when that should happen is just very different. It just sounds like he's wanting to delay that until he gets through this, and you're ready to kind of get that party going now. Not that she wants him to stop getting his degrees. It's just that, to me, she wants to be his number one priority when he right now is his number one priority. And it just, again, it's a difficult place to get to in a relationship, but it happens. It happens, and it's usually not a forever no, but you could always spin the block and come back around to this when things are a bit more focused for him, when he's not going through a rigorous graduate program. Like, usually graduate school is rigorous because you're getting a degree in a shorter amount of time typically. But coursework, in addition to employment, in addition to whatever else you do in your life, in addition to a relationship, that's a lot. It's a lot to manage at one time. And it just sounds like you are going down the totem pole as a priority. And I think she's seeing that. And you can't ignore it. It just is what it is. Regardless of what comes out of his mouth, what are the behaviors that you're seeing? And it sounds like you're seeing him prioritize education and the pursuit of his career. And you can't ignore that. You can't. It sucks. It stinks when it happens if it's not working for you. Because there's some women that could be in that dynamic and it's like, cool, he's grinding and hustling, I'm grinding and hustling. We love each other, we doing this thing, but we're kind of on our individual waves. And when it's time to bring it back together, we will. And we're giving ourselves 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years to do that. You're not where he is in his life. And it's causing a massive clash.
Yeah, and I will say I want to get to the other two topics, but I'm always going to give the contrast because we already know that the person who wrote into us, our real lover, is sharing their opinion and their viewpoint of this person. Absolutely. But that person is not here to defend themselves, and we don't know the relationship. So sometimes I just throw out different scenarios of things I've seen in this situation, and it could be applied, but it could apply to somebody else's relationship who's listening. Yeah. So I know a lot of times I feel like women, you're better at getting through things. Like we've seen a lot, I think more women go back to men who have cheated or go back to men who have treated them wrong. Or like you can get through things a lot easier and have a more, forgetful memory, I should say, than sometimes men. But I would say men don't forget much, right? And we listen and observe a lot, especially a guy who loves, cares about you and stuff like that. And I think sometimes, and I dealt with this with Bree, that sometimes because our anonymous seems like she communicates when she feels something. Yeah. She's going to let you know. That sometimes you may say things and say it in passing, or say things all the time and talk about it all the time. And you think it's not that big of a deal. It's just you talking or communicating or thinking out loud. But he's tracking a lot of times everything that you're saying. So sometimes if you're saying that you want this type of home, or you want to live this type of life, or you don't like how this is, or you're uncomfortable with that he's listening to that. So in his mind, sometimes if he loves you, cares about you, he's thinking, what could I do to get to this point, and how can I create this life for us? Well, maybe if I go to school and get this degree and then, do that. Like sometimes that's how it goes. And then at times, you'll come to the guy at that point after he's like, this is what I need to do. And you may say something that contradicts what he feels like you've been saying the whole time. And it's like, well, I'm trying to make you a priority, but then every time we talk, you're complaining about how we don't have enough of this or how we don't have enough of that, and how you want to live this life and how you want to live that life. So now I'm trying to battle between like getting you what you want and committing to that versus like you telling me you want to do this too. And not saying it's in this situation, but I know as a man that we do go through that sometimes, especially if you're with somebody that's like, I don't know what you want from me. Like I'm trying, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I feel like sometimes, like I said, we always say you got to give your partner some grace sometimes as they try to navigate things and as they trying to figure out things, because you don't know, what they're going through, or also you have to sometimes evaluate what impact you have in how they move and their decisions. And there is a true feeling to where sometimes men, especially when they're already down bad, feel like there's just nothing I could do to make you happy.
Yeah.
It's like, every time I try to do this is a problem. Every time you try to do this to find a solution, this is a problem. And then that can create the distance sometimes to where he's just like,
I can't get it right. So
I can't get it right.
Shut down.
You know what? Like, I don't know. Like, every time I do this, I lost my brother. You arguing at me because I ain't healing fast enough. I ain't opening up to you. And sometimes, like, that's what happens. Like, you telling me, in your mind as an individual, let's say anonymous, that him opening up and working through these issues will help him in the long run. But he may tell you, I'm not ready to talk about it. Some people in that situation say, okay, just let me know. Like, I'm here for you. But some people be like, you need to talk about it. You need to go see somebody. The way that you're acting right. But you're forcing somebody to do it when they told you, I'm not ready.
Sure.
But you're forcing them to because you know what you are probably right, that if they talk about it, they'll be good and they'll be better off for it, but they're not ready and they're telling you they're not ready.
Yeah.
But you are forcing it because you feel like that will help them. And that can where the dynamics can be hard. And that's why I said in this situation, we don't know everything.
Right.
And I think that what you presented is true and great advice, but I just wanted to give different perspectives on it of what somebody's mindset could be and how it could happen and what their thought process could be. Sometimes they'd be like, some people lose their self in the work, in the school,
and all the things,
and all the things. Like, I'm going through a lot. I'm dealing with this, but every time I talk to her, I'm not doing something right. It's an issue. Like,
I got a test, I got an exam.
I'm just going to focus on my school. That's a constant study, take tests, quiz, homework. Like, and I'll just focus on that. Because there's not all this stuff coming back at me. I'm just going to focus on trying to do this thing because everything else is causing me stress. Like, that could be a thing too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the reality of life when it comes to other people is this. The best thing you could do for yourself is be acutely aware of your own feelings and your own standards and your own boundaries and your own requirements for how the people around you need to show up in order for you to keep them in your life. That is really the only thing that you can control. You can request for people to do things. You can request for people to be supportive in a certain way. You can request for people to communicate with you in a certain way. You can request to be married to someone within 4 years of meeting them. You can request that they want to have a baby with you. You can request a lot of things. You can desire a lot of things, but you cannot control anything but how you respond to when they don't meet your requests. That's all that you can control. And sometimes you will get to a point in a relationship, and anybody who's lost a relationship of any sort, not through death, but just the relationship fell apart, whether it was a friendship or a romantic relationship, or you cut a family member off or they cut you off, it was because you got to a point where someone's requests and needs could not be met, and someone decided to sever the relationship as a result of that. It's very simple. And so to me, again, even if we are considering that other perspective, that maybe it is that he feels he's been listening to her and he's been picking up on things, and that's pushing him to get more education so that he can give her something that she says she wanted. If he's not communicating that that's what he's doing, or if he's not communicating, I'm trying to get this right for you, and it just feels like I cannot make you happy. And so since I cannot make you as happy as you would like to be, you should just go, because I can't do it anymore. I would rather focus on this because this is now super important to me. Again, that lapse of communication is always going to get tricky. If you just think someone should inherently know how you feel, it's crazy. She even says that in the scenario where it's like, had I not brought it up, would he have thought things were just good? Well, yes, because no one knows that things aren't good until you tell them things aren't good, unless it's just a raging nuclear experience where like,
well, I don't agree with that. Sometimes people know, but they aren't addressing it, hoping to change it before the bomb goes off. Like, sometimes they could feel something's off, but if they address it and bring it up, then it becomes actually a real thing. So they're trying to figure out ways to not have the bomb go off before like actually like the bomb goes off. So it's like I see things are slipping. She's saying a few things here, a few things there. Like I need to get this together before
But that's
this
what I'm
really
saying. You're
goes
saying
off.
she's saying things,
But
like,
not like
or you're
direct
noticing
things.
change
Yeah,
behavior.
noticing change, right? Not
Yeah.
direct, like saying things, but you could feel with passive aggressive things or passive things that are being done, communication and stuff like that. You're like, all right, this thing's about to blow up. So I think that I need to get myself together or try to do something. And people try to mitigate it before the bomb goes off, but a lot of times
that's assuming that a person's showing you that they are displeased through behavior.
Mm-hmm.
People can literally perform in a relationship and act like everything's cool. Because I've experienced this, and we get 4 months into something, and then you're like, so I've been having this problem for 3 months, and you're like, you were like, whoa, okay. Like,
No, I
it'd be
definitely
different
think it
if
can
you
happen,
felt
for
that
sure.
feeling for a couple days.
Yeah.
Cool, and you needed to think about how to communicate it to me. But some people will literally sit on a problem, and you're like, I wish that you would have just told me sooner, because I could have stopped that behavior. I could have been paying more attention. Like you said, we all get caught up in our lives, especially when we're in relationships. We are like, this is a priority, but I also have a job and a mom and all these other priorities in my life where I may not be paying as much attention to you all the time. But maybe I was, and there was just no signs that you were unhappy.
Yeah, it sucks when people don't even give you the opportunity to adjust and they make the decision for you that you cannot adjust.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you just done without telling me because you feel like I can't adjust.
Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it.
It's crazy about you.
I didn't get a chance to even change, but if you feel like based off your experience with me that I can't,
then
I'm not capable.
Then I guess we're stuck.
Then I guess probably makes sense because this wouldn't have lasted long anyways.
No, not at all.
But I want to get to the last two things and touch on them briefly because I know we're running a little long, but I know y'all enjoying listening to this conversation.
Yes. And it has so many layers to it.
Yeah. So I know one of the things we pose as another overarching theme is it possible to be in the same relationship but have very different experiences?
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
They are, to me, a shining example of that. I'm not saying that he's having the best time. I'm not saying she's having the best time, but I think they're again in the same relationship, but on two different pages. And I have been there. The relationship I think I talk about the most on this podcast, it came to a point where his perception of what was going on was just very different in a good way, like in a very good way. If he had to grade the paper, he probably would have given the paper like A-. If I had to grade the paper, I would have given the paper a C. And we're in the same relationship, but how I'm experiencing it was just very different from him. And I think, again, that's hard. And I don't even know if that's like a permanently bad thing, because I think you can just be having two different experiences sometimes, and that's okay. But to just get in a place where like, I am good, but you are not, and that's going on for way too long, you cannot be that far off and be in a relationship with each other. You just can't. Like, you both should be around in the same area of like how things are going, and you only know that by having a lot of communication. Like, literally, how do you experience our relationship? Like, are you happy? Does this feel healthy? Do you feel like you're getting everything you need from me? Is this something I could do better? These are questions that I don't think a lot of people experience. You're just hoping that if they don't say anything, that must mean they cool.
Yeah.
If they not complaining, that must mean everything is cool. But I wanna know. I wanna be checking in like, how you feeling? We've been together for 6 months, or we decided to get serious after a year of dating. Like, how are you feeling about things right now? Is there any area that I can improve on? Because then it opens up the door. Like you said, it creates this ability for the person to be open with you, because now you're literally asking for the communication. So 100%. I think I've actually been there more than once, where I was in a relationship with the person and it was like, we are not having the same experience. We are just not.
It takes me back to like that, what you learned in like middle school biology or like high school, maybe elementary school, depending on what school system you're in, where they talk about symbiotic relationships. And like, you have the one, I think there's 4 main types, but You have the one which is mutualism, to where both parties are mutually benefiting from this relationship. So you see it in nature, to where the birds sit on top of the rhino, and the rhino is protecting the birds while the birds eat the ticks, everything else. Like, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. No one person is mooching off the other. And the other type, one of the other types, which we all know, is a parasitic relationship, to where it's like there's a host who's not benefiting, and there's another creature or whatever that's sucking the life
Yeah.
out of that host, species or whatever. And I think when you look at all the symbiotic relationships, they all are titled relationships. They're all relationships.
Yep.
But the experience that both beings are having in that relationship vary depending on if it's parasitic, if it's mutual, and I see that in relationships as well, as that, like you said, there are people who are in relationship with one another, but the experiences and what they're getting out of it is completely different. And I think that in order, like you said, repeating it, in order to get through it, there has to be a communication. And I think there also has to be an expectation. If you are in a relationship and you start off as being extremely parasitic in the relationship, or it being that type of relationship, what do you think the rest of the relationship going to be? Or trying to adjust to be something different is going to be a lot harder. If your relationship is conditioned on X, Y, and Z, this person making this amount of money, this person looking this way, like,
Yeah.
it's going, if that's the foundation, it's all going to be based off of conditions.
Yeah.
And you guys, at some point, if things change, could have some different experiences within the relationship. So it's important to communicate, what you ultimately want out of a relationship before you get in a relationship. And like I said, going back to the beginning, it's funny how everything piles back up on top of each other. It's having healthy expectations and understanding that people will change in a relationship and things will change in a relationship. But I think if you love and care about one another, you will find ways to adjust in a way that is accommodating to not only yourself, but to your partner as well.
Yes, agreed. You nailed that, and I think that's really what grace looks like in a relationship, understanding that things are going to happen and there needs to be room for it. But then there's grace on the other side. Like, I saw a clip of a guy this week that said, when his wife left him a few years ago, of course he was very upset. He didn't want that to happen, but he said, thinking about it now, I really don't blame her. I was not showing up. I was not being the person that she really needed me to be. So I can't be upset because I was not doing the job that I should have been doing. I was doing it from my perspective, but relationships are a give and take, and they really are about servitude. They really are. It is like this is a shared experience. And so I'm not in this by myself. I can not only use my definitions, my perceptions of something to be in this relationship with you. I have to be making sure that my needs are met, but your needs are met. And that's a constant thing. And again, if you can't have that, if you don't get on the same page about that, you can't have a successful relationship if you both aren't committed to making sure that it is a happy, healthy relationship that is not parasitic, where only one person is truly benefiting from this. I think that this individual change for him is just too much for her. I don't think anybody's really wrong in this situation. Again, not knowing his side of the story fully, it just feels like he's in a place of building, and it's just not a time where he can focus on her in the way that she wants him to focus on her. It may not be bad, but it's bad for her. She's having a very negative experience. He could be perfectly like, listen, I'm doing what I told you I was going to do. I'm getting my degree. Like, I'm good. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, what's the problem? We can't move together right now. I can't afford it. I don't have time for that. Like, I'm too stressed. That could all be fine and well. It's simply not working for our real lover. It's not.
No, I agree. And we always talk about that. It's all about you and what works for you at the end of the day, because you're the person in a relationship. And I want to make it clear to all the people out there, a lot of what Rhonda and I discussed today, we always said could be, can be, possible, or maybe it is. So we are just trying to give different perspectives, not saying that like some of the perspectives that we share is what we would do or what our thoughts completely are around something. But I think it can be tough, like working on yourself in a situation, when you're in a relationship.
It can be very hard.
And sometimes you need that space to just
work
be
on
like,
yourself, to be selfish.
Yeah, to be selfish. And I think I see a lot of times when people are going through relationship issues, they ask all the questions to work it out, but don't ask the questions that will result in an ending. to really ask, like, do you still want to do this?
Right.
Like, they'll ask you, like, what do we got to do to make this work out? What do you
Right.
need from me? Like, why are you acting this way? Why? But a lot of times, just straight up, like, is this something that you want to do? Like, continue to doing, or like saying, like, hey, you know, this is how I'm feeling. Do you feel like I can be made a priority in your life with you still being in school? And that's a question. And what I mean by that is that not saying that there won't be times to where you have to focus on your schoolwork, but if I'm a priority, that means that in your future decisions for your life, I'm included in those because you see a future with me. When it comes to the different things you are dealing with school, that when you do have free time, I am the priority to spend time with me. Is that something that you want to do? Will it feel like something that you want to do, or will it feel like an obligation to you because we have this title? Like, all these things are questions that might, if answered truthfully or the way you don't like it, want them to be answered, could end the relationship.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that. But some people don't want to ask those direct questions because they know that if the answer is answered truthfully, that means it's over.
Yeah.
And the truth is that I want you to understand that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you.
Right.
It doesn't.
Nope.
It doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Time.
It just means that it wasn't time. Because sometimes people will see that as like, why am I not worthy of your time? Why am I not worthy to be the priority after I've invested this and done this and does that? Like, you have to understand that we're all humans. We have the right to make our own decisions. People have the right to change their mind. I don't care if they tell you something, unless it's a contract to where you can call them out and go to take legal action to get them to honor what they said. They have the right to change their mind.
They do.
No matter who it hurts.
Nope.
No matter who it affects. They have the right as a person to change their mind. And it doesn't always feel good. But you have to understand that that's what happens in relationships when you put yourself out there, that you risk being hurt. Yeah. And that's the risk of love. It's like
the risk of love.
It's the risk of love. It's like you put yourself out there to be loved, but you can put yourself out there to be hurt too.
Yeah, it may not always come back, you know. So to her question about how can people switch it up, that's your answer. They just can. Life can change every single day. You know, I could decide to live here today, and then randomly over the weekend, I just was like, you know what? I'm moving to North Carolina. And I could just do that. Now, everybody around would be like, where did that come from? Like, what's in North Carolina? Whatever. I get the choice, you know? And again, would it bother some people? Sure. Would my mother be like, why you got to go so far? She would say that. But it's my life, and it doesn't, like Dre said, it doesn't always feel good. Do I think you all can repair things? Sure, you could, but you both have to do work to do that. It doesn't necessarily sound like he doesn't want to. It's just that perhaps he just doesn't have the time to, and nor is he prioritizing doing that work. And that is just something you have to pay attention to. Communication is not always verbal. It is body language. It is behavior. It is things that you just have to stop ignoring. Like, okay, she even said, like, I've watched him prioritize these things, but not prioritize these things. Okay, so you see what's happening. You've tried to have communication. Maybe your communication style wasn't the best. I don't know, because some of this is really vague. But at the end of the day, once you guys are at the breaking point where you've tried all that you can, as the gospel song says,
after you don't know,
all you can do is stand on your own 2 feet and be okay with walking away. And it doesn't mean that it may not come back. If you feel like this is real, it could just be a season. It could just be a season for him. Maybe he does need to get through grad school. And that's 3 more years of time. Maybe in 3 years, perhaps.
Yes.
But maybe not. Maybe in 3 years, you will have found somebody totally different. Maybe in 6 months, he will find somebody totally different that can support where he is in life today.
That's why I love sports. I love sports. There's so many cliches, so many sayings that just apply to regular life. There's a saying in sports, it's the best ability is availability. And what that means in the sports world is that you could be the most talented, the most best person of this generation to play your sport. But if you're injured, if you're hurt, you can't help us at all.
Play.
The best ability is availability. And I feel like we can use that in relationships sometimes, is that we see what somebody was at one point. We see the potential of what they could be. But if that person in this moment is not available to do those things, they can't help you in this moment. So you could see what he was, what you think he should have the capability of doing, how he should be when you say, can you repair it? But if in this moment he's not available to do those things, it ain't gonna work.
It's not. And you can go to his family all you want. You can go to all the people around him to try to figure out what he's thinking. It's just that's it on that. You know, it's a tough realization. It sounds like, you know, she'll be a little hurt if walking away is the best decision at this point. At least I would recommend that. I would. You all haven't spoken in 2 weeks. And it sounds like he isn't coming after you. After not speaking for 2 weeks, he isn't pursuing to continue communicating about it. And if you don't show up for something for 2 weeks, you don't have a job. If you don't participate for 2 weeks, it's pretty much done.
And I just say at the end of it, to answer pretty much all the questions that you had at the end of the day, I think it's first, if you are able to communicate and he's open to communicating with you, you need to get to a point to where you're okay with walking away. You got to get to that point. Get to that point. Yeah. And then once you get to that point to where you're okay with that possibility, now see if you can set up a time to talk to him and truly ask the questions that you really want to know the answers to. Really, not the ones to try to make it work out, the ones that you really want to know the answers to. Yeah. Do you see me as somebody that you want in your future? Right now, are you able to make me a priority in your life? Like, these are the questions, and you know if the answers aren't the way you want to be answered, that could be the end of your relationship. So you have to understand that's a possibility. And I think if you have the opportunity to talk to him and you want to know if it could work or if it may, like, I think that there are actions that are being taken and stuff like that to show you what it is. But if you feel like you need to have that conversation, because of the length of the time that you guys have been together, it seems like you have the relationship with his family to be able to call them. Like, so it's a deeper thing. Sometimes we'd be like, oh, somebody's showing you who they are. And it's like, I understand some things are deeper and closer you should get on your own. But I understand some things are just, we had a life together, like for real. Like, but if he's open to having a conversation, I think you just ask those real questions that maybe before you weren't willing to ask because you knew if you got the true answer, it wouldn't, it wouldn't work. But I think that, ask those questions and take the answers for what they are and, be okay with the possibility of having to move on. It hurts. Yeah. It's not fun. It's not exciting.
We got an episode for that.
Yeah.
Leaving and grieving. How to deal with that if it winds up being that. So if you need that, it's there for you. We hope we were able to help you. Good luck with this process. Tough reality after spending time with someone. But hopefully it won't be Meg and Party like. You won't drag each other through the process. If you want to write into the show, you know where to find us, relationshiprestored.com. Click the contact button. Let us know what you're dealing with. Follow us on social at Ronnie Cakes.
As Dre Smith.
And at Relationship Restored.
Peace.
Bye.